All right, look at that. It is noon Eastern, and here we are with another episode of Untangled. I am Jen Frazier, CEO and founder of Firefly Partners, your host week in, week out. We've created Untangled here at Firefly Partners as a place for us to talk to other folks in the digital space and the kind of social impact for profit environment and sort of talk about technology, troubles, challenges, opportunities, things like that. And I like to have different guests on every week to sort of talk about different things in the space that are top of mind and perhaps give folks some things to ponder, things to think about, opportunities, tactics, all sorts of things to help us all get through a crazy time right now. So this week, I am joined by Mason Weintraub, let's see, Senior Director Digital at Enterprise Community Partners. Mason, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here.
Yeah. So Mason and I were just introduced recently by our mutual friend, Emily Goodstein. Shout out, Emily Goodstein. Love you. You're the best. We'll, put you in the comments and give you a shout out. Great, good strategies. And so we just met and we sort of like realized all these great things we have in common and our background and our history. So for those of the folks out there who don't know you, Mason, why don't you just give us a little background on yourself? And I love to talk about the journey that brings folks to being here with me on Untangled today.
Yeah, well, to start, I think our journey could have started a long time ago based on how many people we have in common.
Totally.
Yeah, so I have been in the sort of digital leadership space at nonprofits, exclusively nonprofits, for around 15 years or so. I actually didn't start out in the leadership space, although I was on a digital team. I didn't really want to manage people and didn't. I was reluctantly sort of thrust into managing. What's that?
I said, that's a good choice. I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Well, here I am.
Here we
15
are.
years later. Yeah. No, but it turns out I love it.
Yay.
And so I'm excited about to talk about it today. But one of the things that I love about it is very connected to something from my way back past. My journey starts actually. I actually grew up playing soccer. I was on soccer teams my whole life and through college, and
Nice.
was very surprised every time that I was asked to be a captain of my team, because I was like, I didn't see myself as a captain, but I ended up loving being a captain. And then finally something hit me on the side of the head and I was like, maybe I'd like to manage people too as a professional. So I've been doing this about 15 years and yeah, and I'm glad to be here.
Yay. I love it. That's funny. I kind of love the opportunities that show up for people in their lives when you sort of don't, like, there's a certain type of person that sort of sees themselves in all these different places and sort of moves and motivates in that direction already sort of organically, kind of from their own mind. And then there's sort of things like that show up for you and sort of help you shine a light on something that maybe you didn't see for yourself, which I think is beautiful opportunities that happen through your life. And I wish I'd have played soccer. I was a volleyball player for a while, and then that sort of like then wasn't as interesting. But I'm like love soccer, and I wish as an adult that I could play soccer. But
it's never too late.
I know it's just not as easy to adopt, but that's okay. I'm a cyclist. I'm good. I know my identity. I love it. But sports aside, but sports is sort of like an analogy a little bit, obviously, for a team at your organization, and you're have to work together. You have leadership. You have folks who play different roles, and each role is super important. And if they don't do their role, the whole thing kind of falls apart a little bit. So the topic we had today was digital leadership in these uncertain times, and I was particularly intrigued by the idea of sort of like leadership in general. Obviously, people talk a lot about that, but I kind of like, because we are sitting and spend all of our days in the digital spaces. What does it mean specifically, sort of in the digital realm or digital leadership? And sort of we came up with our ideas of talking points, but obviously one of the main points of leadership is sort of like how you are able to move into that space to help make sure the team works well. And obviously right now we've got a lot of like challenges in the team space, and like, so we talked about this. What are your thoughts about right now, like leadership, just more in general, and we can get into the digital leadership spaces, the key roles of leaders, about how to motivate and keep team members, doing their part in their seat and understanding how their role is so critical in the
Mhm.
functioning of the larger whole.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a real gift to be doing this work for and with nonprofits specifically, because
Mhm.
you're managing good people, right? You're managing people who are like drawn to mission driven work.
Yep.
And so you're kind of handed it's a softball, to use another sports metaphor. It's a softball as a manager to be working with good folks. And just even looking at the evolution of digital, what do we mean by digital leadership, and sort of how digital has been defined? Like it used to be just bolted on to,
Hmm.
we didn't call it digital. I mean, when I
Right.
started out, we called it new media, and before that, it was like online communications, and
Online. Yeah.
yeah, and it was just like bolted on to whatever, communications. We didn't even call it marketing, so it was
Right.
communications at the time.
Yes.
um, and and over time, I actually think the word digital has kind of lost meaning, because
Yes.
because it's diffuse. I mean, and now because it just exists everywhere, it's like oxygen. So it's just communications, it's marketing,
Right.
it's all digital, right? So
Right.
so kind of subtracting from that, even though it's in the title of this discussion, like I think
Yeah.
it's just leadership generally,
Yep.
and and to me, that's how do we get the best performances out of these really motivated people,
Right.
um, day in, day out. And that has always been hard. I mean, it's always been hard for managers and leaders. I think, especially now in these uncertain times, like it's even harder. People are they're dealing with more stuff, certainly outside of work, and that we can't always separate that. But even inside work, I mean, I think inside organizations, there's just so much tumult right now that you never really know what one day is going to look like. And the further down you are on the leadership chain, the less you know, right? Like you get messages last.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
it's
Oh,
just how do you react and
yeah.
respond, and as a leader, how do you support people while they're doing that?
Yeah. I liked one of the things we said in our kind of lead up to this in preparation was the idea of like, also how do you cultivate and look for right folks to be on your team? Like you say, people show up and they're motivated by the mission. Obviously, most of the time they're like, oh, I really want to work with this organization or this cause or this work in some way. Typically, it's, yeah, a personal connection or a personal motivation, but sort of that idea of like trying to fill out seats inside your organization. I like the topic of hiring for curiosity and
Mhm.
humility over technical skills. Why don't we talk about that for just a moment? Like, how does that play out in your sort of day to day or how you approach things?
Yeah, it's definitely a way that I've changed over time as a manager, because I think, at the beginning I was very focused on, does this person have the technical chops to, you know, set up an email marketing program and
Right.
run a MarTech stack? And that stuff's important. It's super important. But I have found that, the people who you work best with, or at least I work best with, and the people who tend to stick around and be the best collaborators within the organization, they're inherently curious people.
Hmm.
They're curious about people. Like, I think there's sort of
Hmm.
like that high EQ
Hmm.
component, but they're also curious about technology, and what's the best use of technology for this cause, for this moment in
Hmm.
particular situation.
Yeah.
Um, and the other thing that I tend to hire for is, so
Hmm.
it's just like, because I think that none of us know what the hell is happening with
At any
technology
given
right now.
moment, I know.
Right. So it's like being able to step back and just own that and say, um, I don't know,
Yeah.
and I'm not going to have all the answers, and I'm going to be best served by asking questions every day.
Yeah. Those two go hand in hand. I think the curiosity has to be coupled with, I don't know. And it's
Yeah.
okay. I think there was a moment, and there's still sort of a little bit of a myth that's quickly dying because in the space of AI and all this, like nobody knows like that. You can't pretend to know. I think there was a moment where it was like, I'm the technical expert and I can
Yeah.
come in and I have all the answers. And I used to get mansplained a lot, of whatever early days. It was like, well, I know the things. And that sort of is a very, obviously very old school way of thinking. And I also really kind of, you know, cringe at that, obviously, but there's a lot of cultivating the curiosity space in your team. And also that just, yeah, I don't know. And it's okay to not know is
Yeah.
actually like a really healthy space to be in our current environment, but really in any environment. Just be like, you know what? It's okay.
Yeah.
Like you have a lot of expertise. Like we are not questioning that you have some expertise, but it's silly and foolish to be like, I know all the answers. So I think
Yeah.
that's a nice way to help folks also feel less intimidated wherever they are in in the hierarchy, whatever you want to call it, in the chain of command and all that, to be like, it's okay. And also for you to not expect that of your leaders,
Hmm.
So I think that kind of goes both ways to be like, okay,
Exactly.
well,
Yeah.
they also don't have all the answers, but they're here. We're here to work on this together. We're going to
Yeah.
figure it out. And that's back to, I'm really team oriented myself. And so I love that because then they feel, everybody feels included in the solutions that also are created in the work that is ultimately created as a team. And again,
Yeah.
like I said, like you need all the players. A captain cannot, win a game on their own.
Right.
So the key right now, I feel like, as we were talking about too, is just this idea of what's happening with your staff and your team right now, in this uncertain moment, or these very uncertain times generally. I know that folks are really facing a lot. It becomes such a mental drain. Lots of folks are really feeling burnt out, even though they love the mission and they
Yeah.
love the work. And I know, again, you don't have all the answers, but um, are there like things you have seen that work well to help folks sort of cope or manage the stress of the madness that you've seen that be successful?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty, it's some of it is just back to basics, right? Of just
Mhm.
like, I think, especially, I will say also, I work remotely full time, and I manage a remote team, and I think that can sort of exacerbate some of the issues at hand, and so I think really showing up for people and with people, and just like, even if you show up and you say, I don't have the answers, like, I'm in this with you,
Right.
you're not isolated and figuring this out, can help a lot. I'm like, I end up being, I'm a little skeptical about you can mitigate burnout by just like telling people to go on vacation and stuff.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it's just, I mean, that's true. Everyone needs to take vacation, but
Yes,
like,
please.
it's also really hard. It's really hard to find the time. It's really hard to find not everyone has the same access to it and stuff. And so I think that there's a problem in sort of assuming that that's going to solve it.
Right.
So I try to approach it with just, basic humanity and trying to put myself in people's shoes. And I have found that to be pretty successful.
Mhm.
The other thing I'll say that is specific to digital work is, I've always I've managed the people who've managed our social media.
Yeah.
And I think social media right now is such a hot mess that
Mhm.
the people who are in those positions of overseeing social media are in a particular, and on behalf of their organizations, are they're in a different spot. Like, they're in the public
Yeah,
conversation in
and
a
it's
way
like,
that other folks aren't.
yeah.
Yeah. And so, looking out for them, and really listening, and trying to help them build community. Maybe not with you, right? Maybe the
Right.
community they build is like with other social media managers who need like a space to vent or whatever.
Oh
But
my god, yes.
so
Yes. Yeah, because that's also, it feels so, I mean, it is so constant, and that, is like a hard space to keep that level of activation all the time, and
yeah,
just being like, "Oh," like the need for ultra responsiveness and da 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 da. It's like taxing to your nervous system. So you have to
hmm,
sort of like go, okay, what do those folks need a little bit extra? Because those of us who are sort of dealing with other like behind the scenes, whatnot, and blah blah, it's not as much. It feels a little bit less constant. So you might have a little bit more of a natural ebb and flow to your work stressors and things like that in other
right,
types of positions. But that does feel a little more frontline, a little more constant. So that's a good piece of advice. I am a big advocate. I'll say this all day long, but my third project that I'm ever going to get off the ground is called Finding Joy in the Dumpster Fire. And I like the idea of just like, what is it? You know, everybody has their own source of joy. And I'm really a big proponent of like, find it, like spend some quiet time thinking about what that is, identify it, know when your body just like kind of
Mm-hmm.
relaxes into that space, and then really consciously, purposely try to tap into that at least, if you can, one time a day. If you
Yeah.
can't, at least a few times a week. Even if it's just for 5 minutes, just be like, go literally have a moment, happy space, whatever, because it just gives your that like constant,
Yeah.
stressor, like a little breather. And it just kind of goes, whew. If you can, just those like throughout the day, and or obviously like get away. Mine is definitely nature and getting outside. Some
Mm-hmm.
people love the British Bake Off show, whatever, like have your fix for like a few minutes in the evening and make yourself laugh. My big one is
Yeah.
laughter. Like
Mm-hmm.
come back to a space that like, this is all madness, and there are real problems happening affecting real people's lives every single day, but also don't feel guilty trying and needing to step away. Like
Yeah.
you
Totally
just
agree.
you gotta do it, and it's okay.
Yeah.
Otherwise you won't be able to come back even stronger and
Yep.
maintain that, because this is a long haul. As we've talked about in other episodes, we're not in a sprint. This is a big marathon,
Yeah.
even though I
We're
hate running.
sprinting a marathon. Yeah.
We are sprinting a marathon. Okay, that's gonna make me start to have like hives.
Sorry.
I'm like, like, I'm so not a runner. So I'm like, my body's like, ah, please don't. But let's get into the leadership side of it.
Mm-hmm.
Because you talked a lot about this in our prep work about what does it mean? And I totally love and agree with everything you just said at the beginning of this too, about like, it's kind of silly to even say digital leadership right now, even though obviously there's different kinds of leadership and there are still different kinds of company, but everything we do in comms and outreach and whatever and blah blah, it's just so ubiquitous. It's funny to actually put the word digital in front of marketing. I'm like, oh right, there's still like print, or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
but like it.
Yeah.
So if there's a specific thing about digital leadership, great,
Yeah.
but really I think it's this like, what does digital leadership mean for you, and sort of like what's happening for folks, and how should they show up for their teams in these crazy times?
In these crazy times. Yeah. Um, I mean, the way I think about it, I think of digital leadership, or at least my role in managing a digital team,
Mhm.
as sort of operating all the time along three different dimensions, and probably not all three simultaneously. But the first one is just within the team itself. So, um, how can I help connect dots between um, the various sort of verticals or functions within my team? So whether that's like um, improving something on the website so that our like email sign up rate goes up or something.
Mhm.
So something
Mhm.
that is like a channel specific thing that the email manager may not see the connection to the web
Right.
at first, but I can help sort of, that's an obvious one. It's just right there.
Right.
But sort of within the team, sort of how do those functions work best together.
Mhm.
Um, the other dimension, and the next dimension is the team outward, sort of laterally. So
Mhm.
how are and how I would say specifically how is and it's not just me, I should say. I'm the leader of the digital team, but digital leadership is embodied by everybody who's
Right.
doing the digital work, right? It's
Right.
just a set of attributes and practices. So it's how am I helping my team to show up for teams that sit next to us? So
Mhm.
how are we, if it could be like providing a training for frontline fundraisers and how to
Mhm.
use digital in their work, or it could be standing up something for an organizing function or supporting events. But it's just that
Mhm.
sort of, we're all in the same boat, and they may not be um, digitally focused practitioners. That's not their area, but sort of how can we radiate out and help bring
Mhm.
digital into their work.
Love that.
um, and I also like that because that helps us sort of build digital literacy within the organization, which then just helps everybody, right?
Ding ding.
Um, and then the third dimension is how can I help, sort of as sitting in the middle of a lot of different areas in the organization and
Mhm.
also hierarchically in the middle?
Right.
How can I help connect the sort of organizational direction, strategic direction with the people on my team who are doing the day-to-day work. So how are they seeing the work that they're doing reflected in the strategic plan or the department's goals or all of that? And they all have to connect. They have to connect, or very legitimately someone could say to me, like, what am I doing here? What
why
is
am I
the
doing
impact
what
my
I'm
work
doing?
is making? Right.
Right.
If someone ever has to say to you, like, am I making an impact here? Like, I don't see it. You're lost, right? So you have to
Yeah.
kind of go back to those basics and figure out how to align all of those things together.
I would like to just put all the exclamation points. I love all of those things, but the exclamation points for me are on the last piece because I think that those feed very strategically back to the other two. I mean,
Mhm.
if you have anyone who doesn't understand, and we've walked into multiple teams over the years where folks are literally just sort of like in their lane, kind of head down, doing the stuff every
Mhm.
day, and don't either have the opportunity or brought in to the opportunity, create the opportunity, whatever it is, to sort of make sure that there's a lot of looking up and understanding that exact through line to how is what we're doing here on the team, and me very specifically in my role contributing to the next layer, all the way to kind of our organizational direction and goals and objectives that we're trying to achieve this year, next year, whatever, and those strategic plans and all that sort of stuff that do feel very, lofty and
Yeah.
kind of disconnected, but that's, everybody's job there. And I think it is the middle job to connect that kind
Mhm.
of bigger picture down to and ensure that the folks, and I would say in both directions, this is really the hard part too, is that the leadership is connected to what folks are doing, and that the folks
Mhm.
on the ground doing the things understand how it connects back up. I think there's horrific disconnect in both directions in so many organizations,
Yeah.
and it's kind of a tragedy of
Yeah.
like, and I do think that's also a big thing that leads to burnout because you don't really feel like you're having an impact. There's
Yeah.
nothing worse than showing up every day and working your tail off and then being like,
Right. To what end?
what is this actually doing?
Yeah.
And then again, for leadership to not really get the value of the folks and what they're doing, and working their tails off every day, because
Yeah.
they don't see the impact either. So it's this huge like missed opportunity, especially if there's misalignment or just misunderstanding, or this stuff isn't actually making the impact that it should.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. But I do like the layers you just laid out of kind of the digital leaders, multiple roles, multiple hats, if you will, like
Yeah.
lanes that you're swimming in simultaneously. And that's
Yeah.
tricky. Yeah, like other tips for other leaders out there. Now we're kind of getting close to time. I know we had some like, here's the things that digital leaders should also be thinking about, like need to lead. I like that. Digital leaders need to lead. Tell me what that means from your perspective.
I mean, to me, it means, and this is another one I've had to learn over time, but just not being afraid to lead, to have the hard conversations at all levels. I
Mhm.
think, a key role for me is advocating, right? Just like advocating internally for resources, for space, visibility, and not always waiting to be handed the things. And I think that's really hard, especially when you're starting out as a reluctant manager to think that you can ask for things. But it's really important because people are, I think, especially with digital, like the leadership may understand, probably do understand, at a base level, the importance of investing in digital, and they've been doing it now for years, much, 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 much better than used to happen. But they really need somebody to articulate like what that means and what is the best investment, and what are the trade-offs, what can be put off a year or two, and that's a big part of my role now.
Mhm, mhm. I like, yeah. It's like back to some of those earlier components, advocating, for your team members is so critical when it's, again, leadership may again not understand the importance or, really see that impact. Being a big advocate is a big one. like the other piece here we can talk about for just a minute is the idea of like, back to the curiosity space is sort of like being on the front end a little bit and like looking for new different ways. I think back to like my, like people just kind of get in their lane and they just do their thing. And it's really important for the leadership to really push and promote sort of that continual, let's make sure we're still doing this the right way. Let's look at new tools. Let's look at what else is happening in a curious and strategic way. That's your role. It really is.
Yeah.
Because we've done this for 10 years, just certainly doesn't mean that we should keep doing it.
Right. In fact, we should probably stop. Yeah.
In fact, yeah. And that's where leadership sometimes I think gets in a rut, and the importance of like really checking yourself to make sure you're challenging some of that, because you get comfortable. You're like, okay, this is the thing and it's working or whatever. And you just kind of stay at it and you have to get out of your comfort zone a little bit in the leadership role.
Yeah. There is one thing I didn't mention that I do think is important too, sort of as a through line among just across the digital work, which is sort of an emphasis on data, which is something that I try to bring into my team's work, because I think data is like the great equalizer. It's the thing that everybody can do. Everybody can take their work and analyze it and measure it. I mean, in digital at least. To some degree. And it is that thing that helps to unlock those conversations with leadership, because that's, and somebody who does a really good job at translating their work into something tangible that leadership can look at is like, that's just gold. That helps everybody.
Totally. And that's kind of your sweet spot in the digital space, is kind of thinking about data analytics, all the reasons why, to show that impact. Really, really powerful. To help in both directions, again, sort of see what's working, what's not working, and really help bring it back to, we're here to connect with our folks and help move our mission forward. And yes, data is critical in sort of making sure that that is happening the way you want it to happen, and the stories can be told in the way that they need to be told to help get more support and more folks energized about the mission and all that. So definitely love that space as well. But definitely back to, again, being curious about your own team members and curious about whatever that, as much as you're hiring for that, it's like almost, giving yourself some posties to be like, remember, like, you stay curious.
Yeah.
That's like a critical space there of curious in leadership. And what does that mean to be doing all the things we just talked through? Lots of different layers. Digital leaders right now have a lot on their plates. So we also want to give a lot of thanks and praise back out to folks who are juggling all the things in a very tumultuous, and look, I'll just say the word AI one more time. Like, it's a very tricky, hard, moving environment that we are in right now, and trying to just like not get distracted by the shiny and stay on the, but also explore, thoughtfully, because you don't want to be like, oh, that train is, leaving the station and I'm still kind of standing at the platform and like, wait, what? So, there's a lot to juggle. But I do love all the things. I'm going to write this back up. Obviously people can watch the video later about just ideas. I think you brought up a lot of really interesting and thoughtful ways of approaching, like, what does it mean to mentor and manage a team in this space right now, and stay curious yourself, and kind of breathe that bridge between leadership and staff to ensure that all your teams are crushing it on all the levels, even though we have no idea what's happening on an everyday basis. So, nothing, no problem, no stress.
No stress.
Y'all got this. Y'all got this out there.
There you go.
We're doing great. Just thank you, Mason, for all those really interesting and thoughtful approaches to digital leadership right now. It's a tricky time. But like we said, even before we started this, my like sanity moment is, this too shall pass. We are stronger than this. We will get through it, and we're going to persevere. And I would think, good triumphs over evil. So that's my 2 cents for the day.
Totally agree.
We got this, people. So thank you again, Mason. Great episode of Untangled. Next week we'll all be hopefully somewhere with friends and family of choice, family of origin, whatever family means to you. I hope you have a great holiday break. Take a little bit of that finding joy moment, get back to your sweet spot, laugh a lot, relax. Hopefully, yeah, tune out, get away from anything digital for 5 minutes. You
Yes.
digital leaders. That's the other thing. Take a break. Let your eyeballs and brain take a moment, enjoy, and we will regroup. And Untangled will be back here in 2 weeks on December 4th, noon Eastern. My dear friend Mon Sakdalan from Strativation Partners will be here, and we will have a joyous and raucous time. In the meantime, everybody enjoy your break and have a lovely rest of your Thursday.
Great. Thanks, Jen.
Appreciate you.